The galaxy had learned to fear the quiet places, not the bustling hyperlanes where freighters drifted in lazy convoys, nor the luminous ecumenopolises where trillions lived beneath artificial skies, but the places where sensors went blind, where hyperspace routes were scrubbed from public charts, and where Imperial transponder codes changed too frequently for smugglers to keep up. In those hidden voids, the Empire built what it could never admit existed. Third-person narration followed the sterile corridors of an Imperial black site research facility orbiting a dead moon in the outer rim. The moon itself was a slab of lifeless rock, its surface scored by ancient meteor impacts and dust storms that howled across vacuum-thin valleys. No settlements, no traffic beacons, only a ring of defense platforms and a single, dagger-shaped research station whose hull plates bore no registry numbers. Inside, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and ionized metal, the recycled breath of 1,000 imprisoned souls. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Deep within the station, past blast doors marked with crimson warning sigils, a lone figure hung suspended in a field of pale blue energy. The containment chamber was circular, its walls studded with emitter nodes that pulsed in slow, synchronized rhythms. Kyber crystals, small, imperfect shards, had been embedded into the machinery, their unnatural glow bleeding into the air like cold fire. The field hummed with a frequency that set teeth on edge. Mere sound felt more in the bones than heard. The figure in the center stirred. Logan's eyes snapped open. For a moment there was only pain, not the clean, sharp pain of a blade or the dull ache of broken bones, but something invasive, like needles pushed into his nervous system, lighting every nerve ending at once. His muscles convulsed against restraints he couldn't see, invisible bands of energy that held him aloft. He tried to move his arms and felt resistance like thick water pressing back. His senses, always too sharp for his own good, drank in the room. The sterile tang of chemicals, the faint ozone of energized fields, the metallic heartbeat of machines layered over the distant thrum of engines. Beyond the chamber walls he could hear boots, dozens of them, marching in precise cadence. Voices followed, clipped and cold. It filtered through plastoid helmets. "Subject regained consciousness," a voice said, tinny through an intercom. "Stabilize the containment field. Increase Kyber resonance by 3%. Logan growled, the sound low and animal, and the muscles in his forearms bunched. Pain flared brighter as the field tightened in response. He bared his teeth, more reflex than threat. His memories were fragments, white corridors, screaming alarms, men in black armor shouting orders, a tearing sensation, like the world itself had split open. Then darkness, now this. The field's pressure didn't stop him from doing what came naturally. With a wet metallic whisper, 3 adamantium claws slid from between the knuckles of each hand. The sound was unmistakable, a promise of violence made manifest. The blue energy field flickered as the blades met resistance, their tips sparking against the invisible barrier. Across a reinforced viewport, a cluster of Imperial officers and scientists watched with thinly veiled fascination. They wore dark uniforms without insignia, their rank and purpose hidden behind secrecy. Among them stood a tall figure in black robes, his presence warping the air around him in subtle, unsettling ways. An Inquisitor. His pale eyes never left Logan, and a faint smile tugged at his lips. "Fascinating," the Inquisitor murmured. "No connection to the Force, and yet the field strains to contain him." "He's not Force-sensitive," said the lead scientist, her voice steady but tight with excitement. "Our scans confirm it. His physiology is unprecedented. Cellular regeneration at an exponential rate. A skeletal structure infused with an unknown alloy. It's as if his body was engineered for violence." Logan's head snapped toward the viewport. He couldn't see them clearly through the distortion of the field, but he could smell them. Fear, curiosity, authority. It all bled together into a scent that made his lip curl. He didn't understand their words, but he understood their intent. He'd been in labs before. He knew the look of people who saw him as an object to be studied. "Hey," he rasped, his voice rough from disuse. "You're going to want to let me out of here?" The Inquisitor's smile widened. "It speaks. How quaint." A bolt of dark energy lashed from the Inquisitor's hand, crackling across the containment field. The kyber shards flared in response, channeling the surge into Logan's body. His muscles locked as pain tore through him, white-hot and merciless. He roared, the sound echoing off the chamber walls, and his claws raked against the barrier in futile arcs. "Careful," the scientist said sharply. "Sustained exposure disrupts his regeneration. If you damage the subject too severely—" "That is precisely the point," the Inquisitor replied. "We need to know his limits." The bolt ceased. Logan sagged against the field, breath coming in ragged pulls. Already he could feel his body knitting itself back together, the familiar itch of healing crawling under his skin. But something was different. The pain lingered longer than it should have. The kyber-lit machinery hummed with a resonance that seemed to interfere with the rhythm of his recovery, like static in his blood. Across the viewport, the officers murmured. This wasn't just another prisoner. Well, this was a resource. Hours blurred into one another as tests began. Fields tightened and relaxed. Blades of coherent light, lightsabers, were brought close enough to the barrier that their heat licked his skin, leaving angry welts that healed slower than expected. Droids jabbed him with probes, drew blood, analyzed it in real time. Logan spat curses, threats, and laughter in equal measure, his defiance the only thing he could control. Between tests, he listened. He learned the cadence of their language, picked up words through repetition: empire, asset, project, inquisitorius. He understood enough to know one thing: these people weren't interested in helping him get home. In the quiet moments, when the chamber lights dimmed and the hum of machinery softened, Logan's thoughts drifted. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know how he'd crossed whatever boundary separated this cold, sterile place from the world he remembered. But he knew cages. He knew men who hid behind uniforms and protocols while doing monstrous things. And he knew one more thing, burning steady beneath the pain. Cages were meant to be broken. The Empire did not sleep. It rotated its nightmares in shifts. Logan learned that quickly. The lights in the containment chamber dimmed and brightened on a cycle meant to mimic rest. But the work never truly paused. When one team of scientists withdrew, another replaced them. New voices, same cold curiosity. The guards changed too. Stormtroopers in pristine white plastoid armor stood in disciplined pairs outside the chamber, their helmets reflecting the pale blue glow of the kyber-lit machinery. Their presence was a steady pressure on Logan's senses, a reminder that even if he tore through the field, there would be guns waiting on the other side. Through the haze of pain and forced stillness, Logan pieced together fragments of his surroundings. The station orbited something dead, no life, no moisture, just rock and radiation, where he could feel the faint vibration of engines through the deck plates, a constant hum like a giant heart beating in the void. The air recycled endlessly, tinged with antiseptic and scorched circuitry. It reminded him of other places he'd been held, other labs that had promised answers and delivered only scars. This time, the men and women beyond the glass spoke more freely. "He doesn't respond to neural inhibitors," one technician muttered, scrolling through a holodisplay that flickered with layered anatomical scans. "We've flooded his system with compounds that would put a Wookiee into cardiac arrest. His metabolism neutralizes them in minutes." "That regeneration is the key," the lead scientist replied. Her eyes never left the projected image of Logan's skeleton, the adamantium lattice gleaming like a blueprint for cruelty. "And if we can replicate even a fraction of it, the Emperor's stormtroopers could be improved." The word landed wrong in Logan's ears. Improved. He flexed his fingers, claws half extended, and felt the field resist him with a gentle, infuriating pressure. He pictured what would happen if those soldiers had what he had. Bones that wouldn't break, wounds that closed as fast as they were made. The galaxy didn't need more things that couldn't die. A door hissed open somewhere beyond the viewport. The temperature in the chamber dipped, a subtle chill that prickled along Logan's spine. He didn't need to see the newcomer to know something had changed. The air itself felt heavier, charged with an unseen weight that pressed against his senses in ways he couldn't name. The Inquisitor returned. He moved like a shadow given shape, robes whispering across the floor. Up close, his presence was worse, an absence that tugged at the edges of Logan's perception, like staring into a void where something should be. The scientists straightened instinctively, their confidence shrinking in the face of the dark-robed figure. "Report," the Inquisitor said. "Regeneration remains consistent," the lead scientist answered. "However, the Kyber resonant field disrupts the process under sustained load. We believe prolonged exposure to dark side energy could further degrade his recovery rate." "Good." The Inquisitor's gaze never left Logan. "Pain is a language all creatures understand. We will teach him to listen." Logan snorted. "Buddy, I've been listening my whole life." The Inquisitor's eyes flicked toward the sound. "You understand more than we anticipated." "Enough to know you're not the welcoming committee," Logan shot back. "So how about you cut the crap and tell me what you want?" A ripple passed through the containment field as the Inquisitor raised one hand. Logan's breath caught as an invisible grip closed around his throat. Not physical. Something else. Something cold and invasive. He clawed at the air, his fingers brushing nothing, the field preventing him from reaching the source of the pressure. "We want what you are," the Inquisitor said calmly. "Your resilience, your capacity for violence. The Empire values assets that endure." The pressure eased. Logan sucked in a harsh breath, coughing as his lungs burned. His healing factor went to work immediately, knitting ruptured capillaries, soothing bruised tissue. Still, the memory of that grip lingered, an echo of helplessness he hated more than the pain itself. "You want a weapon," Logan said hoarsely. "Try building one that doesn't mind being used." The Inquisitor's smile was thin. "All weapons mind, eventually. That is why we break them first." What followed was not interrogation in any traditional sense. It was a series of calculated provocations designed to map Logan's limits. The containment field was lowered incrementally, while shock collars and kyber-infused restraints were engaged, forcing him to strain against multiple layers of suppression. Droids advanced with stun batons and retractable blades, their movements precise and unfeeling. Logan fought them on instinct, every muscle screaming as he tested the boundaries of his prison. When he struck, the field reacted, tightening, flaring, burning his skin where he pressed too hard. The kyber shards pulsed in response to the Inquisitor's presence, amplifying the feedback. Logan's claws scraped uselessly against energy and alloy. Each impact sent vibrations up his arms, rattling his adamantium bones. Pain lanced through him, and for a heartbeat, his vision went white. He laughed anyway. It was a raw, reckless sound that surprised even him. Pain was familiar. Pain was home. If this galaxy thought it could teach him suffering, it had a long way to go. Between bouts, Logan caught glimpses of other rooms through the viewport, cells where figures slumped in exhaustion, some human, some not. Prisoners, test subjects. The Empire didn't just build weapons, it harvested them. The realization hardened something in his chest. He wasn't the first to be caged here. Well, he wouldn't be the last. Later, if time meant anything in this place, the scientists withdrew again, leaving only the guards and the ever-present hum of machinery. The Inquisitor lingered, studying Logan as if memorizing him. "You are an anomaly," he said quietly. "The Force does not flow through you, yet it recoils from your presence. You are outside our understanding." "Story of my life," Logan muttered. "In time, you'll be integrated into ours," the Inquisitor replied. "The Empire has a way of making everything fit." As the dark-robed figure turned away, Logan closed his eyes and let his senses stretch beyond the chamber. He listened to the rhythm of the station, the pattern of guards, the subtle shifts in the containment field's hum. Somewhere in the machinery's song, there had to be a weakness. Cages were never perfect. Someone always cut corners. Someone always underestimated the thing inside. And when they did, the thing inside got out. The escape began with a mistake so small no one noticed it until it was already too late. Imperial facilities were built on redundancy, layers of protocol stacked atop layers of automated oversight. Doors required codes, codes required authorization, authorization required biometric confirmation. But even the most ruthless machine empire still relied on people to maintain it. And people, Logan had learned, made patterns. They repeated routines. They trusted systems that had never failed them before. He lay suspended in the containment field, eyes half-lidded, breathing slow and shallow, as if exhausted by the latest round of tests. The chamber lights dimmed to their lowest setting, bathing the circular room in a cold, lunar glow. Outside the viewport, 2 stormtroopers stood at attention, their white armor catching faint reflections of blue. The shift change was coming. Logan could smell it, the fresh plastoid, the faint tang of calf on a trooper's breath, the subtle change in body odor that came with new bodies replacing old. The containment field hummed at a steady frequency. For hours, Logan had listened to that sound, cataloging its rises and falls, the barely perceptible stutter that occurred every time the system recalibrated. The Kyber shards embedded in the emitters pulsed in slow, synchronized beats, their glow waxing and waning like a mechanical heartbeat. The field wasn't constant. It breathed. That was the mistake. Logan waited for the breath. The moment came with a soft change in pitch, a fractional drop in the field's resonance as the system shifted to compensate for power cycling elsewhere in the station. That it was nothing the sensors would flag, nothing the guards would feel. But Logan felt it. He felt the pressure ease, not by much, but enough. He moved. His claws snapped out with a metallic snarl, and he drove them into the invisible barrier with everything he had. The field flared, bright as a lightning strike, and pain tore through his arms as the energy bit back. The Kyber shards screamed in sympathetic resonance, their glow spiking as they tried to stabilize the surge. Logan roared, not in pain but in fury, and pushed harder. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the field buckled, not a clean collapse, more like a bubble bursting. The blue energy flickered, rippled, and then tore open in a ragged seam, where his claws had struck. The containment field failed with a thunderclap that reverberated through the chamber, throwing sparks from the emitter nodes and plunging the room into stuttering darkness. Logan dropped. He hit the deck hard, boots skidding on polished metal, and rolled to his feet in one fluid motion. Alarms began to howl instantly, a rising chorus of sirens that set his teeth on edge. Red emergency lights bathed the chamber in a bloody glow. The viewport shutters slammed down, sealing the observers out. The stormtroopers outside reacted a fraction too slowly. Logan was already moving. He burst through the chamber's inner blast door as it began to cycle shut, his claws carving molten grooves through durasteel. The first trooper went down with a startled shout, Logan's shoulder slamming into him and sending him sprawling. The second raised his blaster, but Logan was inside the weapon's firing arc in an instant. The blaster bolt scorched past his ear, heat singing his skin. He grabbed the trooper's rifle and wrenched it free, the plastoid armor cracking under the force of the blow that followed. More boots pounded in the corridor beyond. Logan could hear them, dozens of troopers responding to the alarm, their movements precise and practiced. He smelled ozone as blasters powered up. The corridor filled with the sharp tang of fear, the metallic scent of weapons charging. Blaster fire erupted. Logan dove forward as bolts lanced through the space where he'd stood a heartbeat earlier. The impacts scorched the walls, leaving smoking craters in their wake. He came up behind the nearest trooper, claws flashing. The plastoid armor parted like paper under adamantium, and the trooper crumpled with a strangled cry. The corridor became chaos. White armor, no red lights, blue blaster bolts ricocheting off metal. Logan moved through it like a storm, every sense stretched to its limit. He felt the heat of near misses, the concussive thump of impacts against his ribs. Pain flared, then faded as his body knit itself back together. His healing factor worked over time, but he could feel the difference. The Kyber resonance, still lingering in his system, made each recovery slower, heavier, like running through deep water. A heavy turret deployed from the ceiling ahead, its twin barrels swiveling to track him. Logan swore and veered into a side passage as the turret opened fire, the corridor behind him erupting in a hail of blaster bolts. The air shimmered with heat. The smell of scorched metal and burning insulation filled his lungs. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't have a map. But he had instincts, and they screamed one thing: move. The station's layout unfolded in fragments: junctions, maintenance hatches, lift shafts. He tore through a service panel and dropped into a crawl space, the narrow confines scraping against his shoulders. Droids skittered away from him, their optical sensors flaring in alarm. He ripped past bundles of conduit, feeling the thrum of power beneath his fingertips. Somewhere above, he felt it again. That cold pressure, that unseen weight in the air. The Inquisitor. Logan burst from the crawlspace into a hangar bay, lit by emergency strobes. Starfighters sat in neat rows, their angular silhouettes stark against the cavernous space. The bay doors were sealed, a vast dura-steel wall separating the station from the void. Crews scattered in panic as alarms blared. Most stormtroopers poured in from multiple entrances, forming firing lines with mechanical precision. And at the far end of the bay, framed by the glow of crackling lights, the Inquisitor waited. His lightsaber ignited with a hiss, a blade of crimson plasma humming to life. The sound was wrong, too alive, too eager. The Inquisitor's eyes locked onto Logan, and the air between them seemed to tighten, as if the space itself were bracing for impact. Logan flexed his claws, blood and sparks dripping from their edges. He took a step forward, then another, the deck vibrating faintly beneath his boots as engines spooled up somewhere deep in the station. "Come on, then," he growled. "Let's see what you've got." The Inquisitor raised a hand. The Force answered. The Force struck like a sudden storm. Logan had faced enemies who could read his moves before he made them, who could anticipate the patterns of combat and exploit every weakness. Assassins, mutants, gods. He'd danced with death more times than he could count. But the Inquisitor wielded something different. Invisible fingers of energy twisted and tugged at him, slamming him into the bulkhead with crushing force. The air hissed as the lightsaber's crimson glow reflected off his claws, painting the hangar in streaks of blood-red and white metal sparks. He hit the deck hard, bruised but alive, claws raking sparks from the floor as he pushed off. Every movement was a calculated risk, every step a gamble against a power he could neither see nor fully predict. The Force pulled at him, tried to throw him off balance, to exploit his rage, yet to shape him into the weapon the Empire wanted. But Logan had been through worse: pain, fury, desperation. They were his companions. The Inquisitor advanced with measured steps, the crimson blade swiping in arcs that hissed through the air. Logan lunged, claws snapping, aiming for a kill. The energy blade met adamantium with a scream of friction, sparks cascading like deadly fireworks. The Inquisitor moved with unnatural speed, deflecting attacks that would have torn ordinary beings in half. But Logan's healing factor, coupled with decades of combat instinct, let him push further than anyone expected. Blaster fire erupted from the sides as stormtroopers tried to flank him. But Logan was already moving faster than they could aim. He pivoted, claws extended, tearing through armor with mechanical precision. One trooper fell. Another. The hangar bay became a storm of white armor, gunfire, and the metallic roar of claws meeting plastoid. Somewhere above, the kyber-resonant emitters in the chamber began to react, sending pulses through the floor. Logan felt a flicker in his healing, a subtle but nagging pain, like the energy field had followed him into the hangar. He spat blood, flexed his claws, and roared, an animal and a man, fury incarnate. The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed, sensing the disruption, and he raised his other hand. The force lashed out again, tugging at Logan's body with invisible chains. Logan fought the pull, muscles screaming, claws digging into the metal deck. He twisted, using his momentum to smash a row of control panels into the approaching troopers. Sparks flew. Smoke coiled in the air, stinging his lungs. He could smell ozone and burned circuitry and fear all at once. Every instinct screamed that he couldn't stop. Not now, not ever. The Empire wanted to make him a weapon, and he refused. From above, a ventilation shaft hissed open. Logan's eyes flicked upward, catching the glint of metal against darkness. He leaped, claws extended, and landed atop a control catwalk. The Inquisitor followed, red blades slicing the air inches from his face. Logan ducked under a strike, rolled across the narrow platform, and slashed upward at the Inquisitor's midsection. The blade hummed against his claws, leaving only a faint nick in the black robes. The Inquisitor leaped back, maintaining distance, his movement precise and almost graceful despite the chaos. Alarms screamed louder now, echoing across the station. Imperial officers shouted commands. The droids skittered to intercept, and stormtroopers reoriented in panic. Logan's senses burned with the cacophony, but he could feel the rhythm of the station, the weak points in patrol patterns, the hum of engines and power conduits. He moved not just with strength, but with awareness honed by decades of survival. The Inquisitor's voice cut through the chaos, calm and precise. "You cannot fight what you cannot touch," Logan snarled. "Watch me." With a furious surge, he leapt down into the center of a squadron of stormtroopers, claws flashing, tearing through armor and leaving streaks of molten plastoid in his wake. Bolts ricocheted, sparks flew, smoke coiled, and still he advanced, relentless. Every step was a message. The Empire did not control him. He was no asset. He was no weapon for them to wield. He was Logan, and he fought on his own terms. The Inquisitor followed, blending force attacks with the precision of a trained duelist. Logan felt invisible hands push and pull him, as if the air itself conspired against him. Pain flared, slowed by his healing factor but not erased. Every hit, every tug, every strike brought him closer to the limit, but he refused to break. The line between human and beast blurred as his fury fueled movement, instincts guiding him past attacks no one alive should have survived. The hangar bay became a battlefield of fury and precision, a storm of metal, light, and energy. Logan's claws met the Inquisitor's saber repeatedly, sparks cascading with every collision. Blaster bolts streaked through the chaos, some deflected by adamantium, others forcing him to duck or roll. The force seemed to anticipate him at times, and yet instinct and sheer determination let him counter where logic failed. Then above the din of alarms and destruction, a larger sound, the hangar bay doors shuddering, locking sequences failing, the massive durasteel barriers beginning to slide open. A shuttle waited outside, engines already primed for departure. Logan's eyes narrowed, a way out, but only if he could make it there through the storm of Empire soldiers and the Inquisitor still pressing him relentlessly. He growled low, claws extended, and moved. Every strike was measured, every leap precise, every dodge instinctual. He could smell the fear in the troopers, the adrenaline in the Inquisitor, and somewhere beneath it all, the faint tang of victory. The Empire thought it had broken him. They thought they had learned his limits. But Logan had learned theirs. And he was just getting started. Logan's path through the hangar ended not with triumph, but with calculation. The shuttle waiting outside wasn't just a means of escape. It was a gauntlet. Stormtroopers had taken positions along the light deck, blaster rifles raised and ready. The Inquisitor hovered above, crimson blade casting long, flickering shadows across the polished metal. And behind him, the station itself began to lock down in emergency lockdown mode. Bulkheads sliding into place, power conduits rerouting energy, alarms screaming in a rising crescendo. Logan crouched low, claws extended, every muscle coiled. The air smelled of ozone, scorched plastoid, and fear, his and theirs. He could feel the shuttle's engines vibrating beneath him, and the slightest misstep could mean a fall into the vacuum of space. He did not hesitate. Nor a squadron of stormtroopers stepped forward, firing in disciplined volleys. Logan leapt, twisting midair, claws flashing in arcs that shredded armor and left molten streaks along the durasteel deck. A blaster bolt lanced past his shoulder, scorching his jacket, and he pivoted to slice another trooper down, their plastoid armor collapsing beneath adamantium claws. The Inquisitor landed silently behind a barricade, the force crackling visibly around him. His presence pressed against Logan's mind, subtle and insidious, trying to bend him into fear, into compliance. Logan snarled. He'd fought men who used manipulation, gods who toyed with reality, but the Inquisitor's power was different. A test, a measuring stick, something he couldn't just overpower physically. He ran, vaulted over a crate, and dove into the shuttle's access ramp. The blaster bolts tore through the metal around him, sparks flying in a deadly shower. Inside the shuttle was narrow, functional, not designed for comfort, perfect for a fight. Logan twisted, ripping a control panel from the wall and throwing it into the first trooper pursuing him. Sparks and blood mixed in the dim emergency lights as the trooper crumpled. The shuttle shuddered as its engines ignited. Logan ran toward the cockpit, limbs moving with precise efficiency, honed through decades of survival. He didn't need the controls. He could figure it out. He had survived worse. Behind him, alarms echoed as more stormtroopers and droids surged forward, trying to stop him. The Inquisitor appeared at the doorway, forcefully projecting Logan backward with a telekinetic push. Logan crashed into a wall, claws scraping uselessly. In sparks flying from panels, he growled, rolling to his feet and lunging forward. The Inquisitor blocked with the lightsaber, the red blade meeting adamantium in a shower of sparks. Their struggle was brutal, both of them moving faster than the eye could follow, striking, dodging, countering, the sound of metal on metal a ringing anthem of defiance. Then Logan saw it, a small maintenance hatch leading into the engineering section, a sliver of opportunity. He ducked, rolled, and vanished into the tight crawl space, the Inquisitor's lightsaber slicing mere inches from where he had just been. Sparks and heat sprayed into the corridor, searing metal and scorched air, but Logan was gone, leaving only the echo of his growl behind. Inside the narrow service ducts, Logan moved with ease. The confined space suited him. He could feel the hum of the shuttle's engines, the vibrations of the hull, the faint currents of recycled air. He listened. Every footstep, every breathing pattern, every mechanical rhythm gave him information. The Empire had thought to trap him with sheer force and technology. They underestimated instincts honed by survival and fury. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed in silence, broken only by the distant clang of boots and the faint hiss of machinery. Logan navigated the ducts, emerging into a maintenance bay far from the shuttle's immediate path. Here, the station's underbelly hummed with life, cables, conduits, and machinery stretching for hundreds of meters, humming in a mechanical symphony. Blaster turrets tracked the corridor above, but none could reach him. He paused, catching his breath, flexing his claws. The Kyber-induced disruption in his healing factor had eased slightly, though his body still ached in ways unfamiliar. His mind raced through the map of the station he'd built in his head from instinct and observation. He had three choices: keep running blindly, circle back to destroy the Empire's research, or attempt a direct confrontation with the Inquisitor now that he understood his opponent's rhythm. The decision came as instinct, as it always did. Logan did not run blind. He would not flee. The Empire had made a mistake. They had introduced chaos into a system that thrived on control, and Logan thrived on chaos. He moved silently through the maintenance corridors, emerging near the main reactor. The chamber was massive, filled with the hum of containment fields and the glow of energy conduits. Engineers, the unaware of the approaching predator, moved among the machinery. Logan's claws whispered against the floor as he advanced, a shadow among shadows. One swipe, one arc, and the first unsuspecting Imperial operative went down. He was careful, fast, precise, leaving no trace until the alarm caught up. The Inquisitor, sensing the disturbance, emerged from the shadows of a nearby catwalk. "You cannot outfight the Empire, Logan," he called, his voice calm, measured. "You cannot escape what you are meant to become." Logan grinned, teeth bared, eyes blazing. "I'm not meant for anything but living my life, and you're in my way." The Force swirled around them as the battle erupted again, more vicious, more chaotic. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the station itself seemed to tremble under the clash of adamantium and the dark side. The Logan was not a weapon to be wielded. He was a storm, a force unto himself, and the Empire had just learned that some monsters could never be tamed. Above the din, he caught a glimpse of the shuttle still powered, still waiting. One path remained: make it to the void, leave the station in ruins, and survive. The Empire could build soldiers, experiment on animals, even corrupt Force-sensitive minds. But they could not control Logan. He would escape. He would fight. And when the time came, he would make them pay. The corridor ahead narrowed. Blaster fire ricocheted from the walls. The Inquisitor's presence pressed in again. Logan crouched, claws ready, heart steady, fury burning bright. He surged forward. The void awaited, silent and cold. But freedom never came, without a cost. Logan burst from the maintenance corridors into the shuttle bay. The massive doors had begun their opening sequence, the gap growing wider with each second. Engines hummed and roared to life, casting heat and vibration through the metal deck beneath his boots. The escape route was clear, or at least it would have been if the Empire hadn't left one final unavoidable obstacle. The Inquisitor hovered above, crimson blade ignited and humming, eyes fixed with lethal precision. Around him, the Force pulsed like a storm waiting to break, the air thick with energy that sought to crush Logan before he could even reach the shuttle. He could feel the pressure tugging at his limbs, trying to destabilize his balance, bending space itself to prevent his advance. Logan gritted his teeth, claws glinting in the red and blue strobe of emergency lights, and ran. Blaster fire rained from the sides as stormtroopers sought to intercept him. Adamantium met plastoid as he tore through squads with calculated brutality, each strike leaving sparks and molten streaks in the air. The Inquisitor's presence made every move dangerous, every misstep potentially lethal. He launched a sweeping force push, hurling Logan against a support beam with a metallic screech. Pain flared along his ribs, but his healing factor countered it instantly, knitting bruised muscles and repairing fractured bone in real time. The shuttle's cockpit loomed ahead, illuminated by red-lit consoles and the glow of engine cores. One slip and Logan would fall into the vacuum outside. He knew the stakes. His claws tore through durasteel panels and ignited fire suppression nozzles, sending puffs of smoke and chemical haze into the bay. The Inquisitor advanced, spinning his saber in arcs designed to cut, to intimidate, to control. Logan feinted left, then rolled across the deck, claws flashing, scattering stormtroopers and shrapnel alike. He vaulted into the shuttle's access ramp. The interior was narrow, the lights dim, but it gave him cover and mobility. Panels and wiring hung loose, evidence of hurried maintenance or prior sabotage. Logan could feel the vibration of the engines through his feet, the hum of containment fields in the station vibrating through metal and air. Every nerve screamed that this was a critical juncture. One mistake, one misstep, and he'd die before reaching open space. The Inquisitor's voice echoed down the corridor. You cannot escape what you are. You cannot fight what is inevitable. Logan snarled. You clearly don't know who you're dealing with. He surged forward, claws tearing through the final blast doors just as the shuttle's engines roared at full throttle. Stormtroopers attempted to block him, but he moved faster than their sensors could track, ducking and weaving, letting instinct dictate survival. The Inquisitor's force attacks clawed at him, but Logan's fury and resilience allowed him to counter, adapt, survive. He reached the cockpit. Controls were simple enough, rudimentary, but he could operate them. Panels glowed with emergency power. Logan slammed his hands across the console, overriding systems with a combination of brute force and instinctive technical aptitude. The shuttle shuddered as engines roared, panels sparking and systems protesting. The bay doors slid fully open, revealing the void beyond. He leapt. The shuttle cleared the station just as the bulkheads behind him sealed, sending a shockwave through the remaining structure. Alarms screamed, and the Inquisitor's crimson blade cut a flash across the viewport before he was forced to step back. The shuttle pitched, adjusted, and then dropped into open space, the stars beyond stretching into streaks as hyperspace priming began. Inside the shuttle, Logan exhaled, chest heaving. His claws retracted slowly, tips dripping molten plastoid and blood. Every muscle ached, every nerve burned, but the immediate danger had passed. Only the void and the distance between him and the station remained. Yet even in the brief respite, the Logan senses remained alert. The Empire had not finished with him. Through the viewport, he glimpsed the station's ring of defense platforms, turrets trained to intercept. The Inquisitor's figure was visible, still watching, still calculating. Logan knew this was not the end. It was merely the beginning. His mind raced, considering the next move. The Empire had attempted to break him, to harness him as a weapon, and had failed. But they would return, and they would come stronger. Logan flexed his hands, feeling the familiar tension of claws readying themselves. The Kyber field's residual interference still lingered in his system, slowing healing and sharpening senses in ways both painful and advantageous. He had survived, yes, but the Empire's designs were far from complete. Somewhere in their labs, somewhere in their vaults. But the experiments on him continued in concept, if not in practice, and Logan was certain that vengeance would be his next objective. The shuttle shuddered as it primed for hyperspace, the stars stretching into elongated streaks. Logan reclined against the console, the battle behind him, leaving a trail of sparks and destruction, pain, fury, and resolve coiled together inside him, a mix that had always defined who he was. He was not a tool. He was not a weapon to be controlled. He was Logan, and in a galaxy governed by fear, power, and the Force, he would carve his own path. The Inquisitor's shadow lingered in memory, a constant reminder that some foes could not be destroyed so easily. Logan's claws extended once more, just in case. Hyperspace stretched the stars into streaks, carrying him away from the station and toward the unknown. The galaxy awaited, vast, dangerous, and untested. Freedom was not simple, survival was not guaranteed, but Logan was alive, and he was moving forward. The stars outside the viewport streaked into lines of white and gold as the shuttle punched into hyperspace. But Logan's mind did not rest. He had escaped the immediate grasp of the Empire, but survival meant more than evading a single Inquisitor or outpacing stormtroopers. The galaxy was vast, but it was full of predators, and he had just announced himself as one. A creature the Empire could not control, and that others would want to either exploit or destroy. The shuttle's interior smelled of hot metal and recycled air, faint traces of ozone still clinging to his jacket from the escape. Logan flexed his claws, letting them extend fully, feeling the familiar weight and balance. His body throbbed with residual pain. The Kyber-induced disruption in his healing factor left bruises tender, cuts slow to knit, and muscles stiff. But every pain was a reminder, a memory of the battle that he had survived and a warning for what was to come. He had faced gods in his own universe. Here, the Force was alien, pervasive, and relentless, and yet he had endured it. His mind wandered briefly to the Inquisitor, that shadowed figure who had pushed and prodded at him with invisible force and red blade alike. The dark side had a rhythm, a pull, an almost musical cadence that he could feel in the vibrations of the station before he escaped. And the Inquisitor was an expert conductor. But Logan didn't work to their rhythm. He created his own. Instinct was his guide, experience his compass, and fury his fuel. He leaned back against the console, scanning the navigation readouts. Hyperspace lanes stretched like veins through the galaxy, and while he had survived this encounter, he could not afford mistakes. The Empire's reach was vast. Even in the outer rim, rumors of rogue Inquisitors and secret Imperial research stations were whispered like curses. Logan wasn't just a survivor. He was now a threat, and threats demanded action. The shuttle's comm crackled suddenly. Logan tensed, claws extending with a faint snap. Static filled the cabin, then a distorted voice broke through. Identification unknown. State your origin. This is an Imperial patrol in Sector 92. Halt immediately or be destroyed. Logan snorted, half amused, half irritated. I just left your little party behind, he muttered under his breath. Then louder, listen, pal, I'm not in the mood for polite introductions. Step off. Blaster bolts lanced past the viewport, streaking through hyperspace light. Hyperspace lanes bent unnaturally as the patrol ship attempted an intercept. Logan's fingers flew across the controls, slamming panels and toggling emergency thrusters. The shuttle shuddered and groaned as it corrected its trajectory, evading the first volley. Sparks flew across the cockpit as systems overloaded briefly, but Logan's experience in improvisation kept him alive. In his own universe, improvisation wasn't optional. It was the only rule. The patrol ship adjusted, closing distance faster than expected. Logan twisted the shuttle sideways, letting the momentum fling him past one of its targeting arrays. Then with a sudden jolt, he cut the hyperdrive manually, dropping the shuttle out of hyperspace into a darkened system, one the patrol could not anticipate. He let the stars blur behind him as the patrol's cannons fired blindly, in their bolts scattering into empty space. Logan exhaled slowly. He allowed himself a moment to consider his next move. The Empire would not forgive escape. They would hunt him relentlessly. The Inquisitor would return, bringing not just force power but the full machinery of Imperial obsession. And yet Logan thrived in opposition. He had been hunted before. He had survived worse odds, worse enemies, and worse betrayals. The shuttle's automated systems were damaged, but still functional. Logan set a course for a nearby asteroid field, a dense cluster, far enough from known hyperspace routes that the Empire's patrols would hesitate. He knew the dangers: turbulence, hidden gravitational anomalies, rogue mining drones, and unexpected debris. But danger was familiar territory. The shuttle veered toward the field, engines whining under stress, your hull scraping against a massive ice-coated rock. Inside the asteroid field, Logan had cover, shadows, and room to maneuver. Patrols would have difficulty tracking him here, especially without risking collision. He exploited every visual cue, every sensor reading, and every instinct honed from a lifetime of surviving worse terrain. Claws tapping rhythmically against the console as he monitored the shuttle's hull integrity, he felt the adrenaline settle, the kind that sharpened senses and slowed time just enough to anticipate the unpredictable. As he maneuvered, a small transmission blinked on, unauthorized and unencrypted. A voice, gruff and wary, crackled through the shuttle speaker. "You're far from anywhere safe. State identity. If you're a bounty—" Logan cut the transmission before the last word. He had no time for chatter, no patience for attempts at diplomacy. Yet he made a mental note. Someone had detected him, or at least had a presence nearby. In this galaxy, allies were rare and trust rarer. But potential leverage existed in unexpected forms. His eyes scanned the sensors again. Among the asteroids, a faint signature glimmered, a small freighter, unregistered, moving with intent. Logan's instincts screamed caution. It could be a trap, an independent faction, a bounty hunter, or a smuggler willing to trade lives for credits. He had survived enemies worse than stormtroopers, worse than the Inquisitor, but he understood leverage. He calculated the risk, weighed the odds, and decided contact could be beneficial. He initiated a manual docking sequence. The freighter's owner, he didn't know yet who, would have little reason to resist. They're assuming the shuttle's appearance and damage suggested an innocent traveler seeking refuge. Logan's fingers danced across the controls, deftly maneuvering the vessel through narrow gaps, past jagged rocks and spinning ice, until the shuttle latched securely against the freighter's hull. Inside the freighter, The interior smelled of recycled air and fuel, faintly spiced with something Logan couldn't immediately identify. A single figure emerged, a humanoid, cloaked, a blaster at the ready. Logan met the eyes beneath the hood, sensing alertness, fear, and calculation. The person didn't lower the weapon. They didn't need to. Logan's presence, claws extended, an aura of barely contained fury made the point for him. "You're far from Imperial space," Logan said, voice low and steady. "Vow, and you look like you're not running errands for the Empire. So what's your game?" The cloaked figure studied him for a heartbeat, then spoke carefully. "And you are a survivor, not typical, not known, not registered." "Yeah, that's me," Logan replied. "Now what's your play?" A subtle tension filled the room. Logan could feel the freighter's hull vibrate with hidden engines and concealed compartments. Sensors blinked faintly along walls, suggesting defensive systems. Whoever this was, they were cautious, capable, and not naive about the galaxy's dangers. That made them useful, potentially. Logan weighed the options. Allies were temporary, trust fragile, but survival often demanded compromise. The figure lowered the blaster slowly, but didn't speak further. Logan flexed his claws in silent warning. This wasn't an invitation. It was a test. He respected that. In a universe of shifting alliances, the cautious and prepared survived. Minutes passed as the two assessed one another, the silence stretching longer than comfortable. Outside, asteroids drifted lazily, but the proximity alarms blinked faintly, a subtle reminder that danger was never far. Logan's senses remained on edge, ears attuned to the hum of the engines, the faint vibration of the shuttle, the subtle pull of the Force lingering in his own system. Finally, the cloaked figure spoke. "The Empire will not stop. They have eyes, hands, and the dark side. You are different, perhaps too dangerous to ignore, perhaps useful." Logan smiled faintly, teeth showing in a half-grin, half-snarl. "Tell me something I don't already know." The figure inclined their head, expression unreadable beneath the hood. "Then you understand the cost of survival. Allies are temporary, trust is earned, and the Empire will come for you. Always." Logan leaned back, retracting his claws, and considered. He had escaped death, stormtroopers, an Inquisitor, and the cold logic of Imperial experimentation. Yet he knew this was not the end. The galaxy had opened its gates before him, a vast expanse filled with danger, potential allies, and enemies he had yet to name. One choice remained: remain a fugitive, moving from system to system, surviving on instinct and skill, or take the offensive. The Empire would not rest. He had been tested, caged, and hunted. Survival alone was not enough. Logan needed strategy, leverage, and a way to turn the galaxy's dangers to his advantage. He studied the cloaked figure again, noting the subtle strength in posture, or the careful control of the blaster, the precision of movement. This was someone who could help, or hinder. Logan had survived worse than stormtroopers, worse than dark side manipulations. He could survive this, too, but perhaps not alone. "Name?" Logan asked, voice rough but steady. The figure hesitated, then spoke, voice measured. "Call me Soren, for now. You are Logan." "Good enough for me," Logan said, stretching slightly, letting the tension ease. "We've got a lot to discuss, and a lot to survive. So, Soren, where do we start?" Outside, the stars glimmered in infinite patterns, unbroken by hyperspace lanes. Danger, chaos, and opportunity waited in equal measure. Logan had survived the Empire's cage. He had survived the Inquisitor's wrath. But the galaxy was vast, and survival alone would not be enough. Allies, plans, Mutant fury would be the tools he wielded next. Logan exhaled, letting the hum of the freighter's engines settle in his ears. He had escaped the first trap, but the hunt was far from over. And in a universe where the Force flowed, where the Empire schemed, and where predators waited in the shadows, Logan knew one truth above all. He did not submit. He did not yield. And he did not stop fighting. The Inquisitor would come again. The Empire would return. But Logan would be ready. The asteroid field slowly receded behind Logan's shuttle as he and Soren navigated the narrow lanes of debris. But the sense of safety was a fragile illusion. Logan had learned long ago that freedom in the stars was temporary. The danger never truly ended. It simply waited, patient, until the hunter lowered their guard. And in this galaxy, the Empire never slept. The shuttle's engines hummed steadily, though the hull still bore scars from the earlier battle, scorch marks, twisted metal, and panels gouged by blaster fire and the impact of a force-pushed bulkhead. Logan flexed his claws, feeling the dull ache of stress fractures in his bones, the lingering sting of cuts that had only partially healed. The Kyber interference still slowed regeneration, and while he could move, fight, and survive, he was aware of every vulnerability. Soren, seated across the cockpit, watched him carefully. Her eyes flickered with a mixture of calculation and wariness, hands hovering near her own concealed weaponry. Logan noted the tension, trained, alert, capable. In this universe, allies were rarely safe, but they were necessary. Soren's presence could tip the balance between survival and annihilation, and Logan had long since learned to recognize competence when he saw it. "You don't trust anyone?" Soren said finally, voice calm but cutting, as if observing the patterns of a predator she could not yet fully read. "I trust survival," Logan replied, retracting his claws and leaning back against the console. "Everything else? Temporary?" Her lips curved faintly, almost a smirk. "Temporary works. For now." The shuttle sensors beeped, subtle but insistent. The Logan glanced at the display. Several signals, small craft moving in coordinated patterns, rapidly closing on their position. Imperial vessels. Not the routine patrols, but something larger, more deliberate. They weren't chasing by chance. They'd calculated the intercept, cutting off possible hyperspace routes, predicting his trajectory with cold precision. Logan's jaw tightened. "They're not giving up." "No," Soren said. "They want you alive. That's the problem." The words hung in the cabin like a shadow. Alive meant a cage, experiments, and more hunters. Dead meant finality, but survival, Logan knew, always meant moving forward, always meant fighting, and sometimes making impossible choices. He activated the shuttle's defensive systems, toggling thrusters and rerouting power to the hull plating. Soren assisted, guiding the shuttle between jagged asteroids and collapsing ice debris. The fleet followed, relentless, tactical, efficient. They fired intermittently, testing reaction times, the ship's responsiveness. Logan danced through the field, each movement precise, each dodge calibrated. But he felt the tension. The Empire's engineers and tacticians had anticipated even the smallest maneuvers. Claws extended once more. Logan prepared for what he knew was inevitable. Boarding. The shuttle was too small, too damaged to outrun a coordinated fleet indefinitely, and the Empire would not allow him to remain free without a fight. Then the first boarding craft detached from one of the Imperial ships, a sleek, angular vessel, powered by suppressed repulsor lifts and equipped with magnetic grapplers. It latched onto the shuttle with mechanical precision. The alarms blared, the hull shuddered, and Logan exhaled through gritted teeth. "Time to dance," he muttered. Soren activated a countermeasure panel, releasing bursts of energy that disrupted the magnetic locks momentarily. The shuttle groaned, sparks flying, but the Imperial boarding team persisted. Logan unbuckled himself, claws gleaming, muscles coiled. This was not a fight to survive. This was a fight to dominate, to assert that he could not be controlled. The boarding ramp hissed open, and stormtroopers poured into the shuttle. Logan lunged, claws tearing through armor, sparks and molten plastoid flying. Blaster fire ricocheted, and the narrow interior became a brutal gauntlet. Logan moved like a force of nature, each strike precise, each swing calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing exposure. Soren supported, using concealed blasters and electronic disruption tools, creating chaos among the boarding team. They came for him, and he made them regret it. The fight pushed the shuttle into a chaotic spin, engines struggling to maintain stability. Logan leapt across consoles, claws raking through armor and limbs alike. Stormtroopers fell, groaning, scrambling, but the boarding team adapted quickly. Their captain, a tall, imposing figure in black reinforced armor, advanced toward him, lightsaber ignited. Logan's eyes narrowed, a force-wielding agent. That explained the coordinated assault, the anticipation of his moves. The captain swung, a red blade cutting through the cramped cabin, aimed for lethal strikes. Logan ducked, rolled and countered with a swift upward slash of his claws, forcing the saber aside. Sparks flew, filling the cabin with heat and light. "Impressive," the captain said, voice distorted by the helmet. "But the Empire does not fail." Logan growled. "I don't give a damn about the Empire's reputation." He surged forward, claws a blur, muscles coiled with tension and fury. Every strike was calculated, every movement instinctive. The captain matched him with force-enhanced agility, their blades clashing repeatedly, sparks and metal shrapnel cascading across the cabin. Soren ducked and fired into the flanks of incoming stormtroopers, clearing space for Logan to move freely. Minutes, or was it hours, blurred together in a symphony of combat. Logan's body moved faster than the eye could follow, his claws slicing through armor, controls, and structural panels alike. The shuttle's interior became a battlefield, that a testament to raw willpower versus calculated precision. The captain lashed out with the force, hurling panels and objects at Logan, trying to crush him against the hull. Logan gritted his teeth, absorbing the hits, using his claws to brace, and retaliated with bone-crushing efficiency. Each swing, each strike, left chaos in its wake. He could feel the disruption of the Kyber interference still slowing regeneration, yet it also sharpened his awareness in a paradoxical way. Danger felt more immediate, reaction times heightened. Through it all, Logan's mind raced. He needed an exit, a way to turn the tide decisively. The shuttle was spinning, engines at maximum output, shields flickering under assault. He knew one thing. He couldn't outlast the Empire in a direct fight. Not here, not now. He needed leverage, cunning, and strategy. Qualities honed not just in combat, but in survival, across countless worlds. His eyes flicked to the hull plating nearest the engines. If he could destabilize the containment field just enough, the resulting chaos would buy time, create an opening. He lunged across the cabin, slashing through panels, rerouting power, and releasing a controlled overload. Sparks erupted, consoles flickered, alarms screamed even louder. The captain stumbled, disrupted, and Logan seized the moment. With a roar, he leapt toward the nearest bulkhead, claws extended, and slammed into the hull. Metal groaned, systems flared, and the shuttle shuddered violently. Stormtroopers screamed, thrown off balance. The captain reeled, momentarily distracted. Logan used the momentum to vault over, landing behind Soren, who fired a precision shot into the control system of the boarding craft, disengaging magnetic locks and sending the stormtroopers tumbling back into space. For a brief instant, chaos reigned. Logan's mind worked faster than the environment could react. He grabbed Soren, bolted toward the escape hatch, and fired the shuttle's emergency thrusters, sending the vessel hurtling through the asteroid field with violent, controlled precision. Sparks flew, rocks scraped against the hull, engines shrieked in protest, but the trajectory held. Outside, the Imperial fleet faltered, momentarily disrupted by the shuttle's maneuvers and the chaos of the boarding failure. Logan knew it was temporary. More ships would come. But he had established a window. A brief, precious window. Inside the shuttle, Logan slumped briefly against a console, their claws retracting, breathing ragged. Soren studied him, expression unreadable but eyes reflecting grudging respect. "You're remarkable," she said softly, almost as a warning. "But they won't stop. Not now. Not ever." "I don't care," Logan said simply, flexing his fingers. "I survive. I fight. I don't submit. And if they come back, they'll regret it." Outside, the asteroid field stretched endlessly, hiding them from immediate pursuit. Stars gleamed in the darkness, hyperspace lanes winding like veins across the galaxy. Logan's instincts hummed with anticipation. The hunt was far from over. The Empire would regroup, the Inquisitor would return, and the dark side would test him again. But Logan thrived on challenge, on impossible odds, on the fury that had defined him across countless worlds. He cast a glance at Soren, with the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. "We're going to need a plan," he said, "because this is far from done." And Logan knew, with certainty born of experience, instinct, and rage. The galaxy had just met its new storm. The galaxy beyond the asteroid field was vast, uncharted in many ways, but Logan had no intention of hiding indefinitely. He could survive, evade, and adapt. But the Empire's obsession would not allow him peace. Every hyperspace route, every colony, every freighter lane could be a hunting ground. And yet Logan thrived on chaos. He had spent decades in war, in survival, in conflict, and he knew one immutable truth. The hunter could also become the predator. The shuttle cut silently through hyperspace, Soren at the navigation console, recalibrating and rerouting to avoid Imperial sensors. Logan flexed his claws absent-mindedly, the metallic hiss filling the cabin. His body still throbbed from the previous battles. The Kyber disruption in his healing factor lingered, but it was tolerable. He had fought through worse. Every scar, every ache, and every bruise reminded him of his resilience, and the Empire had yet to see the true extent of what he could do. "We're not out of danger," Soren said, her voice calm but edged with tension. They'll track us eventually. You need to understand. They've made you a priority. I get it, Logan replied, eyes narrowing. They don't like being embarrassed. I make them look weak, that's all it is. Not just weak, Soren countered. They see you as a weapon, one they can't control. You're dangerous in a way they don't understand. Logan allowed a brief smirk. Dangerous had always suited him. He had survived X-Men, Hydra, countless adversaries, now the Empire. And this galaxy, with all its force, technology, and politics, would be no different. Their shuttle emerged near a fringe system, planets pocked with industrial colonies, their abandoned spaceports and asteroid mining stations. Logan scanned the area with the shuttle's sensors. Perfect for a temporary base, isolated enough to avoid immediate Imperial attention, yet rich in resources for repair and preparation. He maneuvered the shuttle toward a derelict station, half dismantled, half abandoned. Rusted docking clamps and exposed conduits hung precariously, a testament to the passage of time and neglect. But Logan saw potential: shelter, weapon caches, improvised traps, and vantage points. Survival was always about making what you had work for you. As they docked, Logan's instincts flared. The station wasn't entirely empty. Hidden sensors flickered faintly, signs of residual Imperial security systems still active. Dormant mines and automated turrets lurking in shadows. Logan chuckled softly. They never quit. Do they? No, Soren replied. And neither should we. This is where the real work begins. You need allies, strategy, and information. You can't fight the Empire head-on, not yet. Logan nodded, retracting his claws. He had lived in constant battle, but now the stakes were larger than simple survival. He needed to understand the galaxy, its factions, and its politics. The Jedi might be gone, or scattered, but the Force still pulsed through everything. Sith influence lingered. Rebels, smugglers, Mandalorians, all could be leveraged or crushed if necessary. And Logan? He could become a force in his own right, independent, unbound, lethal. They explored the station cautiously, moving through rusted corridors and flickering lights. Soren interfaced with control panels, bypassing security and activating dormant systems. Logan's senses were alert. Every shadow, every vibration, every subtle sound was noted. They weren't just preparing for a fight. They were preparing for war. Minutes later, the shuttle sensors detected movement outside. Small, agile craft maneuvered cautiously near the station. Imperial scouts. Logan's eyes narrowed. They had traced him through hyperspace, through the asteroid field, through his attempts at evasion. The Empire's obsession was relentless. "They're here," Soren said, voice tight. Logan extended his claws fully, stance low, ready. "Let's see how committed they really are." The station erupted in chaos. Boarding tubes shot from the small crafts, landing on the outer decks. Stormtroopers poured in, blaster fire echoing through the metal corridors. Logan moved like a whirlwind, claws tearing through armor, sparks flying as metal met adamantium. Soren supported from the back, using her technology to disable automated defenses and target key Imperial assets. The fight was brutal, kinetic, relentless. Logan's body moved faster than thought, faster than sight. Blaster fire and explosions filled the corridors. The Inquisitor's shadow loomed again, sensed through the Force, pressing against Logan's mind. But this time, Logan anticipated. He allowed the chaos to envelop him, striking with precision, moving with fury. He carved a path through the stormtroopers, every strike measured, every motion instinctive. The Inquisitor tried to anticipate, to predict, but Logan's unpredictability, honed through decades of survival, was overwhelming. Sparks and blood mixed with smoke and the hum of the shuttle's systems. Then Logan saw it, the central reactor. He could collapse it, create an explosion, and force the Imperial forces to retreat or die. It was risky, potentially catastrophic, but it would level the playing field. He signaled Soren, who understood immediately. Together they moved toward the reactor. Logan cleared the corridors with brutal efficiency, Soren disabling electronic barriers and traps. The stormtroopers pressed, but Logan was faster, stronger, deadlier. The Inquisitor advanced, lightsaber ignited, the force crackling visibly around him. Logan met him head-on, claws clashing against the red blade, sparks flying in a storm of fury and light. "Your survival is meaningless," the Inquisitor hissed. "Survival's all I care about," Logan growled, slashing and ducking, twisting through the confined corridors. They reached the reactor. Logan's claws tore into the containment panels, exposing glowing cores and wiring. Soren interfaced with the control systems, initiating a controlled overload. The station groaned, alarms screamed, lights flickered violently. Imperial forces faltered, retreating under the pressure of imminent destruction. The Inquisitor roared in fury, launching a final push. Logan braced, absorbing the force attack, and responded with a lethal combination of claw strikes and sheer willpower. Sparks exploded around them, metal screamed, and for a moment the battle froze in a blur of motion, light, and fury. Logan made the choice. He would not flee. He would not yield. He would fight, not just to survive, but to assert that he could not be caged, controlled, or broken. With a roar, he drove the Inquisitor back, and striking with calculated brutality that left no room for hesitation. The reactor reached critical instability. Soren finished the overload sequence. A massive explosion erupted, shaking the station violently, throwing stormtroopers, boarding craft, and debris into chaos. Logan and Soren barely escaped the blast, diving into the shuttle as the station collapsed around them. The void of space swallowed the wreckage, leaving only scorched metal and drifting wreckage. Logan's chest heaved, body slick with sweat and blood. He flexed his claws, feeling the familiar power, the familiar fury. The Inquisitor had been driven back, the Empire's forces disrupted, and for the first time in this chase, Logan had dictated the terms of survival. Soren glanced at him, respect evident despite exhaustion. "You've made your mark," she said softly. "That the Empire will not forget, but neither will they stop." Logan smiled faintly, retracting his claws. "Good. Let 'em try. They'll learn the hard way." Outside, the stars stretched into lines as the shuttle entered hyperspace again, leaving destruction in its wake. Logan's mind raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. The Empire had underestimated him. The galaxy had underestimated him, and Logan. He thrived in the chaos, the challenge, the fury. The Inquisitor would return. The Empire would rebuild. But Logan was ready, not just to survive, but to dominate, to assert his presence, to ensure that no one, not the Sith, not the stormtroopers, not even the Empire itself, would ever take him lightly. In the darkness between stars, Logan allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. He was alive. He was free. And the galaxy would remember the name Wolverine. The stars streaked past the shuttle's viewport like fractured diamonds as Logan navigated the outer rim. But this time, the weight of strategy pressed heavier than instinct. The Empire had regrouped. He could feel it. Every system carried rumors of increased Imperial patrols, hastily reconstructed sensor grids, and fleets shadowing the hyperspace lanes. Logan wasn't just hunted. He was a target of obsession, a threat defined by what they couldn't control. And yet he thrived on this tension. He had survived enemies who believed in rules, gods who played by laws he didn't understand, and organizations that had tried to cage him. The Empire was just another puzzle. Soren's hands danced across the navigation console, rerouting the shuttle around patrol clusters and hyperspace choke points. Her brow was furrowed, lips tight, yet the calculated precision of a life spent surviving mirrored in every movement. "They'll try to corner you," she said, voice low. "Whatever you do, you need leverage, something they can't predict." Logan flexed his claws slowly, the metallic hiss echoing in the small cockpit. "Leverage is my specialty," he said, eyes narrowing. "Problem is, they've seen the worst of me already." Soren glanced at him, eyes reflecting the dim light of the shuttle's panels. "Then it's time to escalate. You need to make them understand that you're not just dangerous. You're untouchable if they try the same old tricks." The plan formed silently in Logan's mind. It wasn't about escape anymore. It was about confrontation, disruption, and control. The Empire had tested him, prodded him, and attempted to manipulate him. Then they had underestimated the ferocity of someone whose life was forged in constant battle. And now, Logan would force the Empire to respect, not fear, but respect, the sheer unpredictability of a creature who would not yield. He set a course for a derelict moon on the edge of the outer rim. Radar signatures suggested the remnants of an abandoned Imperial research outpost, a place once devoted to biological experimentation and weaponization. Logan knew instinctively that this was perfect. Isolation, potential armaments, and the raw terror of Imperial ghosts lingering among the ruins. The station would be the stage for the final confrontation, and he would be both hunter and orchestrator. As they approached, Logan's shuttle pierced the atmosphere, the engines screaming against the thick clouds and jagged mountains below. The moon was scarred, encratered and industrialized once, but now left to decay. Rusted turrets, broken landing pads, and corroded domes stretched as far as the eye could see. Logan's eyes gleamed, claws flexing with anticipation. Every instinct screamed that this was the perfect battleground. The landing was rough, but controlled. The shuttle's engines sputtered against years of neglect, but Logan's experience with damaged craft ensured they touched down with minimal damage. He and Soren disembarked, the air cold, metallic, and tinged with the lingering odor of old energy cores. Logan inhaled deeply. This was no ordinary battlefield. It was a challenge, tailored for someone who thrived on chaos. He surveyed the surroundings, broken corridors, exposed conduits, and the eerie hum of residual systems. The place had been abandoned for years, but the Empire's scent lingered. Traps, surveillance, and the subtle manipulation of force-sensitive constructs. Logan's senses extended, tracking faint vibrations in the metal floors, the subtle hiss of air systems, and the distant echo of Imperial patrols returning. "This is going to be messy," Soren said, scanning the area with a handheld sensor array. "They're expecting you, and they've prepared accordingly." Logan grinned faintly, claws extending. Good, let's make it unforgettable. The first engagement was subtle. Automated defense systems, turrets hidden in corroded walls, and trip mines left to catch the unwary. Logan moved like a shadow, silent but lethal, dismantling systems with a combination of brute strength and precise strikes. Claws sliced through circuitry, sparks arced across the walls. Non-panels fell in twisted shrapnel. Soren supported from behind, disabling security protocols and marking weak points in structural systems for exploitation. The first wave of stormtroopers arrived moments later, emerging from reinforced doors with blasters at the ready. Logan didn't hesitate. He moved like a storm, slashing through armor, sending troopers flying with bone-crushing precision. Soren fired carefully, taking out key operators and turrets, creating chaos among the ranks. The corridors were filled with smoke, sparks, and the screams of those who underestimated him. Then the Inquisitor arrived, as inevitable as the setting sun, emerging from the shadows with crimson saber ignited and the Force thrumming around him. Logan's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a master manipulator of the Force. He was someone who had already tested Logan's limits. But Logan thrived in extremity. The longer the odds, the more they revealed his strength, endurance, and ruthlessness. The fight escalated immediately. The Inquisitor lashed out with telekinetic precision, hurling debris, striking with force-augmented blows, and attempting to crush Logan against metal walls. Logan absorbed each hit, using bone and adamantium reflexes to counter, clawing through armor, smashing panels, and disrupting energy flows. The corridors became a vortex of motion, metal screeching, sparks flying, blaster fire ricocheting in chaotic arcs. Soren moved methodically, disabling energy conduits, creating localized EMP bursts to temporarily halt automated defenses, and providing cover. Logan could feel the Force tugging at him, subtle but insistent, as if the very environment was aware of his presence. He adapted, ducking, rolling, and striking, his claws finding chinks in armor, weak joints, and exposed flesh. The Inquisitor's strikes were lethal, precise, but Logan was faster, unpredictably so. Minutes, or was it hours, blurred into a relentless clash of power. Logan's body moved at peak capacity, muscles screaming, healing factor compensating for the kyber disruption, claws shredding both armor and structure alike. Soren's interventions created openings, distractions, and leverage points that allowed Logan to dictate the pace. He wasn't just surviving, he was asserting dominance, proving that no Force manipulation, no Imperial training, and no technological advantage could contain him. Then Logan spotted the central control core of the outpost, energy conduits, the unstable power matrices, and an exposed command node. If he could destabilize it, the resulting chain reaction would cripple the facility, disable reinforcements, and create an opportunity for a decisive strike against the Inquisitor. It was dangerous, volatile, but that was Logan's way. Risk, precision, and sheer ferocity combined to create unavoidable consequence. He signaled Soren, who immediately understood. They moved in tandem, Logan clearing the corridors, tearing through guards and automated defenses, Soren hacking panels and redirecting energy flows. The Inquisitor, sensing the impending catastrophe, surged forward, attempting to block Logan's path. They clashed again, saber against claws, force against fury, precision against instinct. Sparks exploded, walls buckled, beyond the very metal, groaned under the intensity of their battle. Logan made the choice. He would not retreat. Survival alone was not enough. The Empire had made him a target, a subject, an object of obsession. But he was neither object nor prisoner. He was predator, unstoppable, uncontainable. With a roar, he lunged, claws raking, tearing through armor, and sending the Inquisitor stumbling backward. The Central Core's energy matrix reached critical overload, and Soren initiated the final destabilization sequence. The outpost erupted. Explosions shook the moon, corridors collapsed, and the entire facility was consumed by fire and debris. Imperial forces, stormtroopers, and automated defenses were obliterated or scattered. Logan and Soren barely escaped to the shuttle, flames and metal raining around them as they launched into orbit. In the aftermath, the shuttle soared above the devastated moon, Logan retracting his claws and taking in the destruction. The Empire's obsession had been met with unrelenting fury. He had survived, dominated, and forced the Empire to reconsider the terms of engagement. Soren studied him quietly, a mixture of awe and respect evident in her posture. "You've made an impression," she said softly. "The Empire won't forget this, and neither will the galaxy." Logan's lips curved into a faint, grim smile. "Let them try. They'll learn, painfully, that I don't play by their rules." The shuttle entered hyperspace, the stars stretching into lines, as Logan reflected on the path ahead. The Empire would rebuild, that the Inquisitor would recover, and new threats would emerge. But Logan had demonstrated one immutable truth. He was untouchable in ways the Empire could not anticipate. Survival was no longer enough. He had asserted agency, dominance, and inevitability. Across the galaxy, rumors would begin to spread. Stories of a creature who tore through Imperial forces, defied the dark side, and vanished before capture. Whispers among rebel cells, criminal syndicates, and even scattered Jedi would speak of the name Wolverine. He was no longer merely a survivor. He was a symbol of defiance, unpredictability, and raw, lethal capability. Logan knew the cost. Every action, every strike, every explosion carried consequences. Systems would mobilize against him, bounty hunters would hunt him, and the Empire would devote resources to ending his life. Yet he thrived on challenge, on risk, on the thrill of chaos and conflict. The galaxy was vast, and Logan was a force unmatched in ferocity, experience, and sheer survival instinct. He glanced at Soren, her eyes steady and resolute. "We've made our mark," she said, "but the next wave is coming. You need more than luck now. You need strategy, allies, and intelligence." Logan's claws extended briefly, a metallic hiss filling the shuttle. "Allies are temporary, luck is fleeting, strategy's good, but fury lasts." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "And I have plenty of that." The stars outside glimmered like scattered jewels, infinite and indifferent. Logan flexed his fingers, feeling the familiar hum of adamantium under his skin, the steady pulse of instinct, and the slow return of his healing factor. The Empire had tested him. The Inquisitor had pushed him, and the galaxy had witnessed his survival. But Logan was not done. The final stage was not just survival. It was assertion, domination, and the creation of a legacy. He would move through systems like a storm, leaving the Empire to chase shadows, react to chaos, and realize too late that this predator could never be caged. And somewhere in the void, where stars burned and systems trembled, the name Wolverine would become legend. Logan had faced the Empire's obsession, survived an Inquisitor's wrath, and turned the galaxy's predators into prey. The derelict moon, once a site of Imperial experimentation, now lay in ruin, a testament to what happens when a creature refuses to be controlled. The galaxy would never forget the ferocity, cunning, and unrelenting will of Wolverine, an unstoppable force operating beyond the Empire's understanding. But this victory came at a cost. Systems now knew his name. Imperial resources would mobilize. Bounty hunters, dark side agents, and opportunists would attempt to capitalize on the chaos he left behind. Logan's path forward was fraught with danger, moral complexity, and the constant tension of survival against an adversary that could never truly be defeated. Yet Logan thrived in chaos. Allies, enemies, and the unpredictable currents of the galaxy were tools to be used, not chains to bind him. He had claimed agency over his fate, demonstrated lethal competence, and ensured that the Empire and the galaxy understood that he could not be controlled. In the endless expanse of stars, Logan did not merely survive, he dominated, leaving behind a legacy of defiance and fury that would echo across systems, inspiring fear, respect, and a reckoning yet to come. The wreckage of the Imperial research outpost smoldered far below, as Logan's shuttle cut through the blackness of hyperspace, the stars stretching into white lines beyond the viewport. Even from this distance, the enormity of his actions weighed heavily. He had not merely survived, he had annihilated a strategic Imperial installation, scattered stormtrooper contingents, and bested a force-wielding Inquisitor in combat. Few living beings in the galaxy could match that record, yet Logan's instincts told him that this was only the beginning. Soren sat across from him, her eyes scanning navigational data and encrypted comm chatter intercepted from Imperial frequencies. "They're mobilizing," she said, her voice calm but tight. Not just the fleet in this sector. They're sending inquiries to every Imperial command post within a standard patrol radius. Your name is already being circulated. Logan flexed his claws slowly, the metallic hiss echoing faintly in the cockpit. "Let them talk. Let them chase. I've survived worse, and besides..." He tilted his head, letting a faint grin cross his face. "I like it when they underestimate me." Soren didn't comment, though her eyes flicked to the nearest sensor readout. New signals were appearing, small craft weaving through the outer rim, patterns too deliberate for ordinary traffic. "They're trying to flank you," she said. "Someone else is coming." Logan's jaw tightened. "Good. I was getting bored anyway." The shuttle emerged from hyperspace near a previously uncharted system, its twin planets, one barren and cratered, but the other lush with minimal settlements, offered opportunities for concealment. Logan and Soren set a course for the inner planet, hoping to lay low while assessing the Empire's response. Yet Logan's instincts screamed that this was not merely about hiding. It was about strategy. The galaxy had seen his power, and now factions would begin to react, some curious, some cautious, some openly hostile. As they approached the surface, small sensors on the shuttle flickered. Logan narrowed his eyes. "Soren, something's out there, something watching." Her fingers flew across the console. Not just watching, tracking. And it's not Imperial. The sensor signature resolved into a fleet of small ships, sleek and angular, but familiar to Logan's instincts, Mandalorians. The armor design was distinctive, Beskar reflecting light even from orbit, and tactical formations indicating high-level coordination. Logan's eyes narrowed. The Mandalorians were not necessarily hostile, but they had an interest in exceptional warriors, particularly those who had clashed with major galactic powers. He tapped his claws against the console, tension building. They're here to test me or recruit me, possibly both. Soren studied the readouts. They're asking questions, using some sort of encrypted signals. Either they're trying to communicate or negotiate terms. Logan reclined slightly. He had learned long ago that not every challenge required immediate violence. Sometimes, observation and leverage were the deadliest weapons. He activated the shuttle's comms, carefully crafting a response through intercepted Mandalorian encryption. "I am Wolverine," he said through the comm, the voice calm but resolute. "I fought the Empire and survived. Speak quickly, and I may consider your intent before I make my own decision." The response was almost immediate. A distorted armored voice crackled through the speakers. "Wolverine, your reputation precedes you. You do not belong to our clans, yet your actions resonate with our code. We propose observation and discussion. Land near the ridge, no tricks." Logan considered the offer. Observation did not imply trust, but it was an opportunity. The Mandalorians were deadly, precise, and honor-bound. Engaging them violently would be costly. Engaging them diplomatically, if such a thing was possible, could provide leverage. He activated the shuttle's landing gear, descending carefully toward the designated ridge. The landing was controlled, the shuttle touching down on jagged rock, its hull echoing with a metallic groan of contact. Logan exited, claws retracted, muscles coiled, ready. Soren followed, scanning the perimeter. From the shadows, figures emerged, armored warriors, helmets gleaming, jetpacks folded neatly against their backs. Their posture was casual but calculated, a silent warning that any misstep would be deadly. The leader stepped forward, a taller figure with Beskar plating scarred from battle. "I am Tarek Vizsla," the voice declared. "We have watched your encounters. The Empire underestimates you. So do the Sith. You may have a place, should you choose, among those who respect strength and cunning." Logan studied the Mandalorian warrior. "Respect is earned," he said slowly, claws flexing subtly. "Bow and strength isn't enough to guarantee survival." Tarek inclined his head. "Survival is merely the first lesson. Adaptation, cunning, and honor are the next." The conversation, tense but deliberate, marked a critical turning point. Logan realized that his path through the galaxy could not rely solely on raw ferocity. Factions, alliances, and the strategic manipulation of perception were as essential as combat prowess. He was Wolverine, a predator who thrived in chaos, but he now faced a galaxy where his reputation preceded him, where actions could provoke new enemies, and where alliances could be leveraged to survive and dominate. Over the following hours, Logan and Soren coordinated with the Mandalorians, trading intelligence and offering selective demonstrations of capability. The Logan's claws and combat prowess were displayed sparingly, enough to communicate lethal skill without inciting full-scale hostility. The Mandalorians responded in kind, demonstrating tactics, terrain analysis, and advanced weaponry, all under the unspoken agreement that respect and capability dictated interaction. Meanwhile, Distant Imperial fleets were mobilizing in response to the destruction of the research outpost. Word of Wolverine's actions had spread across the Outer Rim, catching the attention of regional governors, Sith agents, and Imperial strategists. Logan knew that while this provided temporary leverage, it also accelerated their determination to capture or eliminate him. Every factional reaction created both opportunity and threat, a delicate balance that he now had to manage. Over the next several planetary rotations, now Logan and Soren moved with the Mandalorian observation team across rugged terrain, abandoned settlements, and derelict facilities. They gathered intelligence, disrupted Imperial supply chains, and demonstrated a presence that could not be ignored. Each action, calculated and precise, built a network of influence. Logan had survived the Empire through instinct and ferocity. Now he expanded his survival into strategy and foresight. Yet even as he consolidated power and reputation, the Kyber interference in his healing factor lingered, subtle but persistent. Injuries healed slower, and fatigue accumulated more quickly. Logan recognized that the galaxy imposed limitations, even on someone as relentless as himself. And that adaptation was necessary. He trained constantly, honing not just strength but reflexes, strategy, and environmental manipulation, ensuring that his unpredictability remained his greatest weapon. As he prepared for the next confrontation, he sensed a subtle shift in the Force, not an attack, but an acknowledgement. Creatures, factions, and even distant Jedi remnants felt the reverberations of his survival, of his defiance. Logan was no longer merely a target. He'd become a variable that no one could fully predict, a living anomaly capable of rewriting outcomes. Soren studied him quietly. "You've made enemies, allies, and a reputation," she said. "But the question is, what will you do next? The Empire won't relent, the Mandalorians won't wait forever, and the galaxy is full of forces that see you as either threat or tool." Logan's eyes gleamed. "I'll do what I've always done. Survive, fight, adapt. And if the galaxy wants a reckoning, it will get one." Beyond the ridge, stars glittered cold and distant. The shuttle stood ready, stocked with supplies, scavenged and repurposed, weapons at the ready. Logan had survived impossible odds, bested the Empire, and demonstrated that even the most calculated forces could not predict his actions. Yet he understood the deeper truth. Survival alone was not enough. Influence, strategy, and choice now defined him. The Mandalorians observed silently, acknowledging his competence without fully revealing intent. Logan recognized that trust would be temporary, respect conditional, and that the galaxy's response to him was still in motion. Yet for the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a measure of clarity. He had agency, power, and a path forward. The future was uncertain, but he would meet it on his terms. In the silence of the moon's desolation, Logan flexed his claws, feeling the strength and fury that had carried him across worlds. Soren packed the shuttle for departure, her movements precise, coordinated. The Mandalorians faded into shadows, leaving an unspoken understanding that Logan had earned both recognition and caution. As the shuttle ascended, leaving the scarred surface behind, Logan looked out into the expanse of stars, knowing that the galaxy would continue to test him. Every faction, every enemy, every observer would now factor him into their plans. He was Wolverine, predator of the impossible, untouchable force of survival and ferocity. and the galaxy would never be the same. Above him, the stars stretched endlessly, the void vast and indifferent. Logan's claws gleamed in the dim light of the shuttle, a reminder that he had faced death, power, and obsession, and emerged victorious. The Empire would return, the Inquisitor would recover, and countless factions would attempt to exploit or challenge him. But Logan thrived on adversity. He had survived the impossible, and he would continue to dominate wherever he went. And in the quiet hum of the shuttle, Logan allowed himself a single, grim thought. The galaxy had underestimated him once. They would never make that mistake again.